Palestine protesters calling to globalize the Intifada at Toronto's Eaton Centre on Boxing Day. On Boxing Day, a protest disturbed holiday shopping at Toronto's Eaton Centre, where families had gathered for sales and a seasonal light display. A group of masked demonstrators entered the mall and used multiple megaphones indoors to lead chants, drawing attention from shoppers and store staff. Video circulated online showing participants chanting slogans including "Free, Free Palestine," "From the River to the Sea," and "Intifada right now." The demonstration prompted complaints from members of the public about noise, safety, and the appropriateness of staging a protest inside a crowded shopping center. Security and police were present, and no serious injuries were reported. Authorities have continued to monitor demonstrations in the city, particularly during major public events and holiday gatherings. So, how do you feel as a Canadian seeing chants like "From the River to the Sea" and "Intifada right now" take over public spaces?
Well, I kind of thought we were done with this. Look, guess we're not. I think a couple things. One, a lot of people participating in this have no idea what they're doing. They have no idea what they're saying. They're young, idealistic kids that think they're moving the needle. That's okay. That's just they're relatively harmless, even though there is power in numbers and there's mob mentality that comes into play. So it's not a positive. It is a negative, but it's not as detrimental. But there are some. This is obviously being mobilized by a much larger financial group that has the proper incentive. When you look at sort of the hate crime increase in rates, just in terms of what's happening here, and hey, people can say we're not onshoring it with immigration, but we are. We're taking problems from around the world and we're bringing them here effectively, especially with our asylum programs, which are letting in over 150,000 people a year right now. So Toronto saw 443 reported hate crimes in 2024, which is a 20% spike from the year before. Jewish people were the most targeted, which also saw a 20% spike, 144% spike since 2021. Nationally, we had 4,882 hate crimes in 2024, again with Jews topping the list for 2 years. And then you kind of look at what's happening and where this is going. And what I come to think now is like, we're effectively creating no-go zones. And what I mean by that is like, if you're Jewish, are you going to the Eaton Centre? No, you're not. And this is over the Christmas holidays. Not happening. So effectively in one of the busiest locations in the country, perhaps the busiest, Dundas Square, it's effectively a no-go zone for Jewish people right now, which to me is, I never thought I would see this. When you consider how we grew up with the Holocaust and the education we got from that, World War II and everything like that, I never thought we would see anything like this against, like, sure, racism exists, but I did not think we'd see this kind of attack on Jewish population, especially in Canada. I just didn't think we'd see this. So it's kind of surprising. The issue you have here is this whole like chant for Intifada and glorifying violence, etc. What do people think this turns into? Just look at Australia. That's what this turns into. And I think people need to pay a little more attention to that, where 15 or 16 people are killed, a father, son that are basically somehow connected to ISIS go in to a Hanukkah celebration and just kill as many people as possible. It's horrifying, but that's what this is. This is the knock-on effect. This is the result of those actions. So when people sit there and, I say, well, some of the kids are doing something that's relatively harmless. It's like, right, but this is the next step. It's like, you look at Charlie Kirk, and we've had this conversation about how words become violence, then violence is the response to words that you're seeing in the liberal camp. And then after that, it's mass violence, because that's the next step. Well, the next step here is what we just saw in Australia. And if we don't want to see that happen in Canada, we need to find a way to pump our brakes here. And I think what frustrates me maybe the most, I'm all for free speech. I really am. But if you look at the legislation that the government has put in place, and you look at how they handled people through the Freedom Convoy and other things like that in these instances, what they're showing you is such a heavy-handed two-tier justice system where if it does not comport with their liberal narrative, they will weaponize these policies against this legislation, against these people. But when it does comport with their narrative, or it is their constituents that are mobilized, they let these things go, which could then therefore turn into what we saw in Australia. So this is bananas, and it needs to stop.
Yeah, and the part that I find very hard about this is that, okay, so you've got let's say the Israel supporters who think everything in the war effort so far has been justified, but then also take issue with the protests that are happening here. And what I think is completely lost in this conversation is the fact that, like, this was the strategy all along. I don't think anybody, the Palestinians, ever thought they were going to win a kinetic war with Israel.
No chance.
The goal was to completely ruin Israel's reputation on the global stage. And actually, I think it was John Perkins is his name. He's a urban warfare expert, and he's been very on the side of Israel throughout all of this. But he made a really good point about how from the very beginning, it was never whether Israel could defeat the Palestinians or Hamas, whoever their target be. It was how quickly can they do it, because the longer it goes on, they lose. And so this is what I don't get from the supporters or Israel side is, if you know that this is the objective of your enemy, then you're only playing into their hand at this point.
Right.
And we get to this stage now where, because the reputation of Israel has been drove so far into the dirt globally at this stage, that people have an issue calling out things like this happening at the Eaton Center, because they go, well, it's justified. And my whole point is, and I've said this before, because people, I've definitely, I don't know if you've ever gotten the comments or seen them, or messages of, oh, how's the $7,000 check or whatever, this kind of thing. Because if at all you take a nuanced position at this, it's immediately assumed that you're on Israel's payroll. But did you miss all? You've never seen that?
Nah, I'll take some Jewish money, but no one's paying me to say anything.
No, but we've definitely had some of those on past episodes.
People love to say that if you say something that doesn't basically, again, comport with their narrative, they're just like, you're funded by the other side. It's
right.
Like, or I just have a nuanced opinion.
Yeah, but I've made the point is that my main issue here is actually, I'm very little concerned about what's going on over there. I'm primarily concerned with the state of Canada and the country that I live in, and it falling apart.
Yes.
And so to me, it's like, I don't care what your issue is, what side of that issue you're on. You don't get to destabilize our society because of it.
Exactly.
And like, people will make the claim, because we're taking in refugees and all of this kind of stuff, that, okay, well, imagine this is World War II and you're taking in, say, Jewish refugees. It's very similar. Well, I would have the exact same standard then, even if that you should be taking in refugees from that area. The idea that they would get to go harass public spaces, burn the Canadian flag, chant for violent slogans, because Intifada has historically been marred with let's say, self-detonating vests, stabbings, shootings, terrorist attacks, all of it. And you go like, this is a violent movement, and we're just openly allowing for it, like you said, for these chants in our our most busy public spaces.
Yes.
At times of holiday as well. Like, if you don't think that has something to do with
that's
it.
what I mean. Is I guess it's a bad argument to say, well, yeah, on the other side of the world, these people are doing bad things. It's like, okay, yeah, they both are. Got it. There's two sides that are doing bad things. Understood. Same page. But they shouldn't be onshored here. It's like, you can argue the same thing with the Russia-Ukraine stuff. It's like, yeah, but there's not like a mini war happening in Canada.
Right.
It's over there.
Yeah.
So this is not what we do. So I'm on the exact same page. It's like, this is less about what's happening over there and more about the fact that, hey, don't destabilize this nation that you've come to or that you're a part of because something's happening over there. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You're not moving the needle. Yeah. All you're doing is causing trouble.
And I do think it's important to note with these Islamic movements as well, Islam is a war doctrine. It's a religious war doctrine. And people need to really understand this history of, okay, like, how like the Christian Bible, for instance, teaches you like love your neighbor, right? Treat like don't hold hate in your heart and all this kind of stuff.
Cheek, yeah, lots of stuff.
Well, the Quran instructs the Muslims to hate non-Muslims, and it also instructs them to wage jihad, which is holy war, and that they want to... It's essentially a totalitarian religion. Right. It says you need to, by the sword, enforce this on the world around you. And then, so you look at how this stuff plays out, and you go, like, yeah, that's kind of the direction we're headed in. And
it also says we got it right the first time. You don't need to fix anything in this book or interpret it in any other way. This is it.
Mm-hmm.
Gospel.
Yeah,
go.
This is the last.
Yes.
Where Muhammad was the last prophet.
Yes.
There will never be any more workings to this. This is the last word.
This is it.
And so I just look at that and go like, yeah, this ideology is fundamentally incompatible with our societies. And we're just, I think a lot of what happens right now is this conversation does get just shoehorned in, or essentially blocked off within the confines of the Israel versus Palestine conflict. But it's like, I think the conversation around this needs to be much, much larger. There was actually a really good interview I would suggest people going and listening to called The Real History of Islam with Raymond Ibrahim on trigonometry. And it was really good. He's a Islamic scholar, but yeah, he breaks down the last 1,000 years of history and just goes like, yeah, these are the same tactics that have been used all throughout history, and this is where it goes.
Yeah, it just kind of goes to show where Canada's at with this whole, like, you know, we don't want to disrupt anything. We don't want to offend anybody. You don't want to be considered xenophobic. You don't want to be racist and blah, 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 blah. So everybody's on eggshells. Even people that have grown up here and been several generations here watching this all happening going, well, I don't want to offend anybody because I'm a default liberal. And you go, well, look what's happening. Your country's burning to the ground.
Mhm.
Maybe it's time to step up and do something.